with our future stars coming up and into the league. So joining us, he knows all about it, covers up these guys here into the draft. Matt Babcock joins the program here on the show. So I will tell you this, though, Matt, and I live my life like this. I don't believe that some things in life are a coincidence. I think because when I look at it this way, the NBA draft lottery tends to be like it either does work in favor of the teams or sometimes you kind of miss it. But I mean, living here in Denver, we love our scratch tickets. And usually it's like 14%, I could walk out a millionaire. And then if I don't, then I'm probably going to end up getting the small amount. It's what I feel about the NBA draft lottery because, I mean, LeBron James leaves Cleveland to go to Miami, and then they go and get Kyrie Irving. Then there's Anthony Davis joins the Lakers, and the Pelicans get Zion Williamson. Here we are fast forward where Luka Doncic, which completely broke the internet, goes to the Lakers, and yet the Mavs get gifted with the number 1 overall pick in Cooper Flagg. Is this kind of something that the NBA really has to look into of, should we change this thing or are they going to continue on with this draft lottery? Like, what were your thoughts on that? Because I didn't think it was a coincidence, in my opinion.
No, for sure. I was in Chicago at the NBA draft combine when the lottery was going on. So I was with a bunch of NBA folks and everybody was shocked, when Dallas got that first pick. And, obviously I heard all the same rumblings of like, oh, is this fixed? This, can't be, that coincidental that Nico Harrison's getting so much heat for trading Luka to LA and so on and so forth. I really don't know for sure. I do know it's a continuing conversation as far as with the competition committee and just NBA folks in general of, how do we put more pressure on these teams to not tank? I mean, I think that's the biggest issue. Whether it's rigged or not, I'm not going to comment on that, but I don't have any real insight as far as how they would change it. And I haven't heard any proposals from any official people as to how they would, but I think they'll continue to look at stuff like that moving forward.
So on the subject of Cooper Flagg, because I think it ultimately, when you get gifted with the number 1 overall pick and you've got a roster where I look back at this trade and I said, listen, the Lakers won the long-term deal because you got Luka and he's young and he's going to continue to develop. But if you were looking at a roster for the short term that looks really good enough to be a Western Conference contender, I mean, Dallas from top to bottom with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, they got size, they got skill set, and then all you get is another rookie that is going to fit the bill into this. So when you look at Cooper Flagg's game style, and then even with the mechanics that we've seen through the summer league, I mean, this kind of seems like it'll take a little bit of time until the chemistry does gel, but I think this could be a dangerous team pretty quickly. What were your thoughts on Cooper Flagg here to Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, absolutely. And if you're looking at it from that standpoint, style of play, I mean, Cooper Flagg, that's one reason he drives so much value because you can plug him in about anywhere. He guards everybody on the floor, doesn't really need the ball in his hands on offense to be effective, so he can coexist with just about everybody. I mean, keep in mind, he is still a really young guy. I mean, I think he's got a lot of room for growth, but, he's going to be able to step in right away and contribute at a high level. And I think with Dallas, I mean, as far as, how good their team's going to be in the short term, I think a lot of that, needs to be, are they healthy? I mean, Kyrie going down with the injury, can they get him back? And he and AD, they're both aging stars on some level or another, right? And so, can they continue contributing at a high level these next few years? And how quickly is Cooper going to develop? And we're all hoping and thinking he's going to develop into a star player. I think there's probably going to be some kind of learning curve. I mean, I think it's just common sense for a kid that's 18, 19 years old. That he's not going to step in and just light the world on fire. But I do think if those guys stay healthy or get healthy, and Cooper comes in ready to roll, yeah, they could make some waves.
It is interesting. I won't dive too deeply into this, but Ace Bailey, when I watched him up and in college, the kid's got really good skills. I think the kid's got a very good, bright future. And to me, I didn't think this was a surprise to me in an organization like Utah, because knowing Danny Ainge, he's going to find that kind of talent to where this will work. I mean, going from his experience in Boston, having to deal with Jason Tatum, and then having to deal with Jaylen Brown, I think Ace Bailey, just building to be the star for the future in this organization. I think that was just a direction they were going to end up going. I think it seems like this could be a very good sneaky fit and something Jazz fans are really going to be excited about for the near future.
Yeah, I think that the NBA is a star-driven league, and so I think when you have an opportunity to get a guy that has the amount of upside that Ace Bailey does, I think Austin Ainge said, "Hey, this is what we got to go with." And even though he's a young guy, there are some question marks, about his maturity as a player and in person off the floor. But he does some things he really can't teach. He's 6'8", plus, and he's a tough shot maker. He's hitting fadeaways like Kobe and Durant, and that is a skill set or a skill that really kind of opens up the door. He could be a primetime scorer. And so, I do think it's going to take him a little bit of time. We'll probably see some flashes this year, of him doing some big things. But I think he's probably 2-3 years away from getting to the point where he's going to make a major impact and, have a chance of, really, maximizing his potential.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Let's talk about the Spurs. We know they're turning the chapter now in from the Greg Popovich era to now going into a new regime up from here. But I love with what they're building together with De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and then even with Victor Wembanyama. So you add in Dylan Harper into the middle of this mix. And I think, the one thing that I've always credited the Spurs, they're a very defensive-minded organization. They get the size, they get exactly the collapse in the perimeter because they're trying to enforce a lot of that pressure of score off me. And they're going to find ways to block, to either find steals and get turnovers, to now get possession on their side and turn those into points. So with Dylan Harper, I think there's going to be a spark on the offensive side. But then there's even the room of that growth to where this could really be a sneaky elite defensive team here in the future, right?
No, absolutely. I think, sort of what I said about Dallas as far as their health being really, dependent on how much success they'll have in the short term. Victor, you're missing that time. Hopefully he comes back with no hiccups because I don't think he's far off from being the best player in the world. And we're probably going to see that in the next few years is what I'm expecting from him. And, with the guard trio, it's sort of interesting when, again, going back to the draft lottery, San Antonio getting the second pick, we all sort of penciled in Dylan Harper as the second prospect. It doesn't seem like a seamless fit. We got De'Aaron Fox with Castle. These are on-ball creators that aren't really known as perimeter, at least pure perimeter shooters, and that's exactly what Dylan is. And so, on one hand, I see it as, okay, defensively, you've got some versatility because Castle and Harper have size, and Fox is just such a pesky defender. So I think you could make it work on the defensive end. Offensively, they're probably going to have to, kind of share the ball a little bit, put a lot of pressure on the rim off the dribble. But these guys really need to develop shooting. I think for them to be able to play together and for it to really work, they all kind of have to lift each other up and start hitting shots at a higher clip, and also get used to playing off the ball some. Because there's only going to be one ball in the court at a time. For them to work with. And so I'm going to see how it plays out. But I do like the group of talent. I think they've got a lot of upside, and they've got some guys ready to roll right now.
Same. I feel like that if offensively they can get that going. Defensively, I've never had an issue with because I feel like they could figure that out pretty quickly. But if you could get that offense going, man, it's going to shock a lot of teams up and in the West. Was there any player in the draft, though, that really caught your eye that you looked at and said, from the organization fit, that you're like, man, this guy, they're going to get used to knowing him? Because by that point, he goes into an organization not a ton of people paid attention to, but I think this kid may be ready to turn some heads. Was there anybody in particular that you thought of from this past draft?
Yeah, if I really thought about it, there'd probably be a few. But the one name that comes to mind, did get drafted high, is a VJ Edgecombe. I think his upside is very significant. Personally, I would have looked at him, kind of in the same category as Dylan Harper, even though a lot of people did have Dylan as the clear-cut number 2 guy. And this is not a knock on Dylan at all. I think he's got a chance of being a really great player. I think VJ's athleticism, explosion, I think he's really, sort of just scratching the surface of what he's going to become as far as an on-ball creator. And so I see upside of him being like a, Russell Westbrook type player. In Russell Westbrook in his prime, that was MVP of the league, And so, I don't say that lightly. And so I think VJ Edgecombe is a guy, whether he does it right off the bat or not, I think he's got a chance of being a really big time player.
Absolutely. Man, Philly fans would be absolutely just loving with this kid's potential by far. So this is interesting. I don't know if you got a chance to tap into it yourself, but I look at this and I mean, I talk about the NIL and even with what it's impacting with college football, because to me, I'm all about players getting paid. I'm all about, securing the bag and then at the very least, prepare yourself for the future. But I also know too, is that we're getting a lot of these collegiate athletes that are coming back another year to at least, either get the experiences, maybe get a little bit more incentives, whatever the case may be. When I look at it, college hoops, I mean, funny thing is, my birthday lands on when the tournament starts. So I always love watching this tournament, but it seems to me though, Matt, that like we're going to witness a change with this. This was only year one, but with the NIL, you're starting to see a lot of those top-notch programs from your Dukes to your North Carolinas and so on and so forth that are really going to end up taking a big swing for some of these players that they're going to add on to their roster and really make a run at the title. But the only thing is, for some of these like smaller programs where I would say some of these Cinderella programs we're so used to, they're going to have a bit of a hard time competing up and into it because of just the payroll, bankroll, and then of course, the popularity of the programs themselves. When you start to look at this and what the impact of the NIL will be for the next few years, I feel like, Matt, that with collegiate athletes in basketball coming back another year, I feel like we're shaping the next wave of great stars. Whereas I've watched the NBA in the last few years, I didn't even get a chance to know these guys until year 3, year 4, when they finally started popping in their prime. I feel like this could actually end up happening quicker because the NFL, we get day one starters by the time they're in the first 3 rounds. So it's like, I feel like in the NBA, there might be a little bit of a change on that. What did you feel about this?
You're spot on, and I think about a few things right off the top. Is I mean, one, the talent pool in college is increasing because a lot of these kids that are on the fence, whether they stay in the draft or not, are going back. I mean, I think of guys like Ian Jackson, who transferred from North Carolina St. John's, Tahad Pettiford going back to Auburn, LeBaron Philon going to Alabama, Yaxel Lendenberg, Michigan. These are all guys in years past that would have probably stayed in the draft and been first round picks. These are going to be top tier college players now. And so then you top that off with the transfer portal, which is, very dysfunctional. But what it's doing is these teams are able to put together teams rather than just recruiting talent and figuring it out. And so we've got very talented teams. A lot of them are quite a bit older and more mature and been coached up. And so the talent levels, the competition is just getting better and better, and I think we're always going to have, top tiered freshmen that they're going to be one and done. But I think a lot of these guys are going to stay in school, as you mentioned, longer, and it's just going to be good basketball. And as far as how it's going to impact the NBA, we saw it this year. The depth of the draft wasn't great after the first round, and that will catch up eventually because the guys will use all their college eligibility, and then all of a sudden 2-3 years from now, I mean, we're looking at a very deep draft where you're still drafting, the one and done freshmen, the Cooper Flaggs of the world. But you're in the second round, you might be taking guys that could crack your rotation right away.
Yeah, I agree, because even in the NFL, like this past draft we had was the most roster constructed draft that I think we've ever seen. I mean, these were guys that were ready to fill in the holes that were much needed and guys that can make an impact. If we could get that up and into the NBA where I got a bench role player who can come in, give me some shots, whether it's shooting from the arc or even just coming in and being a defensive threat to where we're getting possession on it and then make the timing to where we're getting our leads and we're keeping our leads. I would love to see a lot of that. I think we're getting a bit of that. We're getting a little bit of that.
Another interesting point, too, in dramatic change in our space is international scouting and prospects overseas, because a lot of these kids are now coming to school. And so now they're going to be sort of categorized as, domestic players. It's just the ripple effects of all this is pretty extreme. And, I'm for it. I mean, there still needs to be a lot of reform and just sort of, rules and regulations put in place. But ultimately, I do think it's going to help basketball at every level. We're just kind of going through some growing pains at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even just from seeing this past season where we saw a lot of the small market teams, and maybe that's just the kind of the blueprint that Adam Silver's put together, is that we want to make it, we want to make it a fair playing field for a lot of these organizations. And after just watching this past finals with OKC and Indiana, it's like, what about Houston? What about a couple of these other organizations? They take a shot at it. So, I mean, we're getting there. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm excited about it. Final question here for you before we end up moving on. So Cooper Flagg goes number 1. Is there anybody in mind that you've paid attention to in college that we may end up seeing that could be the potential next number 1 in the next draft, who I think has a very good high upside?
Oh, absolutely. I spent a lot of time evaluating high school players and getting a head start, and so I'm pretty familiar with most of the guys that are coming in every year. And we have a very exciting draft coming up. 2 guys come to mind. Darren Peterson is going to be a freshman at Kansas. This guy is big time. He's a 6'5", scoring 2 guard. I think he's got a chance of being like the next premier 2 guard in the league. I mean, whether it be the next Dwayne Wade or whatnot, he's special. And then AJ DeBansa going to BYU. And then this guy is just a freak. 6'8", explosive athlete, kind of checks all the boxes. Very, very excited about both. I think, day one, we're all going to be evaluating these 2 and comparing them to each other probably throughout the whole season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think with next year, I think we might get a lot more offensive and some mixtures of some really good defensive specialists this up and coming draft. So I'm excited about this, man. But yeah, I've heard a lot about that kid at BYU, and I think that kid's going to be an absolute stud. So yeah, looking forward to it for the next up and coming season. But Matt, appreciate you for coming on by, and for those to check out, has real good in-depth analysis and has his own show, Matt Babcock Show. Check it out, guys. Matt, appreciate you for coming on by onto the program, man. We'll see you, and I cannot wait to see your in-depth analysis on a lot of these guys for the upcoming draft, man. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Jake. Keep in touch, buddy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just really curious about this because, yeah,